Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video we're going to do a few things. First, we're going to stop using this week by week directory structure and we're actually going to create a directory for our Yelp clone that is going to be persistent from week to week to week so that we don't have to keep copying things. Then we are going to start to introduce comments into our actual Yelp clone. We're going to create a new comic model, and then we're also going to include a reference inside of that model to the comic that comment belongs to. Maybe I should have picked a better item, because comment and comic kind of sound the same, and I'm sure I'm going to stumble over those and say the wrong thing, so I apologize in advance. So step one is we're going to go ahead and just make a copy of our whole Yelp comics and stick it out here into its own directory. So let's go ahead and copy, and we need to do this recursively, so -r, cp-r, we're going to go into week 10 / Yelp comics, and we're going to copy that into Yelp comics right here. Notice that I am not inside any other file, I'm just inside this CS330. So I do that, and now we have our very own Yelp comics right here that's just a copy of the one in week 10. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up all the rest of this. rm-r, week 8, week 9, week 10, and week 11. Clear that, and we should just have our Yelp comics. Yep. And we don't see that over here because it hasn't refreshed yet, but as soon as we do, there we go. So now we've gotten rid of all that extra stuff that we don't need. Now let's go ahead and create a new comic model. If you remember from last time when we created our models, we had a comic right here, and that's what it looks like, so we're going to create a comment one. So step one is to go inside of Yelp comics, so cd Yelp comics, and then I'm going to touch models / comment.js. Notice it's a singular comment, not comments. I'll open that up. And I'm just going to copy all this stuff over right there, and then we can get rid of the things inside of it. Comment schema, comment schema, comment. So we are importing Mongoose. We are creating a comment schema, which is a new mongoose.schema. Then we are creating a comment model from that. You give it the singular name of what you want it to be, and Mongoose will pluralize this for your collection, and then you give it the schema. Now theoretically you could, instead of creating a separate schema and then doing it in here, you could just do it all in here. I like to keep them separate because I think it's a little bit more explicit and a little bit easier to understand and work with, and it only saves you a couple lines, so it really doesn't matter. So inside of here we're going to have a few things. We're going to have a user, which is going to be a string. Then we're going to have the text of the comment, which is going to be another string. And then we're going to have the association. This is going to be the comic ID. And if you remember, it's going to be type of mongoose.schema.types.object_id. And then the reference is going to be comic. It's important to note that we are storing the reference here instead of inside of the comic, because we could, if we wanted to, add on here comments and just add an array of comments on there. But if you remember, that's not good practice, because then you're going to be updating this document, the every comic document, every time that there's a comment made, and you're going to be updating and updating and updating. You want to avoid updating whenever possible. So instead, inside of comments, we're simply linking it to the comic based on the comic's ID, and that way whenever we want to find all the comments that go with a specific comic, we can just search the database for all of them that have the same ID as that comment. And another thing, though, this is not the final model. We're also going to use references later to associate the comments with user, but right now we don't have authentication set up, so we don't have our users. We don't know what that's going to look like. So we're just going to use a string for now, and we can deal with that later once we add authentication. One more thing I wanted to do. Right now, we are creating comment here and then exporting it here. Instead, you can do that all in the same line if you want to. You don't have to, but if you want to. So instead of creating a constant and then using that constant right here, you can just take this part, put it right there, and delete this. And now we saved a little bit of time. So we can do the exact same thing here inside of our comics model. Paste that there, delete, delete. Just makes it a little bit shorter. And that is it for this video. We created our comment model, making sure to include a reference to the comic that this comment will go with. And we talked about why we're referencing it inside here instead of inside the comic. The main reason being that way we don't have to update things. We just have to create them, and then it'll reference back to that comic based on the ID. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to help. Thanks.